You would be surprised how important confidence is and self-love and discipline is. And these are things that everybody may seem like they have, but it's something you learn. It's something you teach yourself. It's something you instill in yourself over and over again. And, finding what makes you confident.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Invincible Goalkeeping podcast. Today, we've got a very special guest. He grew up in the Houston Dynamo Academy, committed to San Diego State, was second team all Pac-12 there, transferred to NC State in North Carolina. Last year had a breakout year, was ACC Goalkeeper of the Year, first team ACC, second team All-American. Played in the national championship last fall, and just recently signed a homegrown with the Houston Dynamo, bringing him back home. But he's a young pro, got a lot of experience so far at the pro level, even before college, high-level college, and now as a pro. But today, let's welcome Logan Erb onto the podcast. Logan, what's up, bro?
How you doing? I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. How has this first year as a pro been so far?
It's been good. Overall, it's been good, but it's hard. Me and you have talked about it a lot, but you come in with such expectations, as great as hearing those accolades being read out, and Lord knows I've heard them over and over again. It all just creates noise in your own head of like what you tend to expect. So a lot of growing, a lot of maturing, going with the flow. For sure.
Absolutely. So talked about grew up in the Dynamo Academy and initially first college you played at San Diego State. Can you tell me just about that process of growing up in the academy, committing to college, and what that first experience in college was like?
Yeah, so I joined the academy when I was about, 14 year. Did great. U16 year, finally got to be in and around the first team, went to my first preseason. Same thing with my U17 year, got a national team call-up then. So, you feel like you got the ball rolling a bit. And then U18 year came, preseason, like always, but then it starts to become time to look for a school, and I was not diligent. It's funny, actually, one of my old goalkeeper coaches, now old goalkeeper coach, his name's Eric Klinovsky, was a USF goalkeeper coach, and he was actually best friends with my academy coach at the time. And how I went about college recruitment was terrible. I just, you think you're going to go pro, I don't need to listen to these coaches, this, that, and the third. And then Eric Klinovsky was at USF as their, I want to say, assistant coach, if not goalkeeper coach. And I remember Jason had just chewed me out about, kind of putting off college, whatever.
The academy goalkeeper coach at the time,
yeah.
Jason Grubb.
Who I think, now at San Diego as their main goalkeeper coach. But 2 weeks later, Eric Klinovsky walks in the building as the new, almost like went underneath the wing of Jason Grubb. And I was like, oh man, that was kind of my first reality of, building relationships and being a part of the, college recruitment and, how serious to take it. But I think I committed about 3 months before I had to leave for school. And I landed on San Diego State, who I think at the time had the number one recruitment class. And funny enough, when I came and signed back here, they had drafted one of my best friends who was in that same recruitment class at San Diego State named Austin Brummett. So it's kind of good full circle moment.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I take a lot from that. First of all, the importance of the soccer world's a small world, right?
100%.
The importance of relationships. Like you were saying, Eric Klinovsky was the goalie coach at a college team and then ends up coming to the Dynamo Academy. So, building relationships in the soccer world, really important, keeping in touch with people. But also, you talked about being diligent in that college process. What would you say, like, you weren't diligent with, and, like, what advice would you give to someone who's looking to go to college? Going off what you said, did you just assume, hey, I'm going to go play pro, and when that wasn't in the cards, do you feel like you should have been thinking bigger picture of kind of keeping your options open?
Yeah, 1,000%. I think the importance of staying diligent for colleges, you have to keep your grades good. Looking back, I'm comfortable with saying it because I ended up being where I needed to be. But my grades were nowhere near where they needed to be, especially with how smart of a kid I am. Uh, Not keeping those close relationships that we were speaking on earlier, and just not being, as personable. I was also it was a rough point. My 17 to 18-year-old self was also in this bit of a rough patch with, you don't know how your life's going to pan out with soccer, how things are going. I had some family stuff going on in the background. So I just don't feel like I really gave it my full effort of being present for all of it.
Yeah. So just that importance of like, if you're in high school, taking care of all the detail, right?
Have to.
On and off the field. Super
1000%.
important. I love that. So when you go to San Diego State, you start getting some minutes, second team, Pac-12. What was that process of transferring? We talked about transfer to NC State. What was the process of transferring? Why did you transfer? Transferring has gotten a lot bigger over the past couple of years, but it's not easy to just kind of pick up your things and quite literally go across the country to a new school. What was that process of transferring, and why did you do it?
Yeah, the process of me was honestly, it was great. Like, I think that was one of the happiest times of my life, just because it's nice to feel wanted, and I think what benefited me a lot is I still had 2 years of eligibility. I had already made kind of a stake in the game as a goalkeeper in college, but I think what ultimately led me down that road to transferring were a couple things. The Pac-12 disbanded. And for those of you who are kind of new to the college scene and how that works, I know Pac-12 is coming back, full new different teams though. Pac-12 was up there near the ACC. The only thing Pac-12 was missing is I think there was only six teams at the time. So everyone played everyone twice, home and away. But that ended up disbanding, and I had found out that San Diego State hold the WAC. And though there are really good teams in the WAC, I think
As the new conference.
as a new conference. Yeah. I made some very personal phone calls with a lot of my old coaches, and they said, look, like, if you want to challenge yourself and, really put yourself out there, like, you have to go to the Big Ten or the ACC and really push yourself to become a starter in one of those big schools. And so, I heard that and I took it personally, and I was like, you know what? Like, I will challenge myself. So was on the phone day in and day out for 7 days. Met Mark Hubbard, who is now my head coach, at NC State. I had some good phone calls with him, and ultimately decided to commit shortly before I left to go back to Houston for the summer.
Awesome. We all know ACC. All the best. I mean, NC State's okay. We know. No, happy you were able to make that move. So you go to NC State, and I don't know, first year or second year at NC State, you're splitting time with another goalkeeper. That's not very usual in college. Usually there's just one starter, but I guess when you have two high-level goalkeepers, that's just what happens. But how did you, what was that like, splitting time with another guy, not really knowing if you were going to play, on the weekend or play the midweek game, and how did you get through that?
It was hard. You're at a new school completely. You come in, you're being told that you're going to be the guy. Got the number 1 jersey, I was happy as a clam. And then met Enzo, great guy, unbelievable goalkeeper, I believe at Hartford now. And it was a culture change. I went from, I played one game my first year at San Diego State. Second year, I wasn't even supposed to be the starter. The starter got hurt first game, and I took over from there. So, you kind of expect, maybe my path will finally be easy. Finally be able to, kind of cruise a little bit. It definitely wasn't. And so we had split time. Every game we would change off, and we wouldn't find out till about 30 minutes before we'd go out for warm-ups. So every single time, we just look at each other and just sit by our phones, and we're waiting to see, is the cycle broken? Is it going to continue to be the rotation? And then I think finally, the first ACC tournament game, we had UVA, and he ended up doing his ankle in warm-ups. As someone who wasn't expecting to play, that's kind of that reality shift of, all right, you wanted a moment. This is kind of where you have to take it. And we ended up losing 2-1, but I thought I played fairly well and was confident to, continue to push to be the starter for him.
I love that. I think sometimes in life, when we're going through something, it's tough because you don't really see the bigger picture. But I think when you look at your situation, it's like the reality of goalkeeping is you always have to be ready. You never know when your moment's going to come. But I think going through something like that, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but it prepared you to, make the most of the rest of your college career, but also kind of remember that, hey, I got to be ready, whether I am playing, whether I'm not playing. I think a lot of people can get complacent as the starter, or even get complacent as the backup. It's like, yeah, I know I'm not going to play, but it's just like you said, the reality of that game, knowing the other keeper got hurt, right? So, but I guess you look back like with gratitude, knowing, okay, like that actually kind of molded me into who I am today.
Yeah, 100%. It just makes you work a lot harder, It makes you really self-conscious on, man, what could I be doing? What extras could I be doing? What film could I be watching? What should I be eating? And I think those ultimately are what build pros, or those hard times.
100%. I love that. So the other keeper transfers to another school. You end up, right?
Yeah, he went to Bryant. Yeah.
Okay. And then so now you are the starter at NC State.
Yeah.
Like we talked about last fall, first team ACC, second team All-American, ACC Goalkeeper of the Year, all these big awards, played in the national championship. Can you tell me why do you think you had so much success last year? Like what made that year so successful?
I would say it started that summer. Well, it started those past summers, because you're fighting to be the one. And I think going into that last summer, I knew deep down I was going to be the guy, but I was training like I was the third. And I was like, man, I got to come in and I got to smash everybody in the way. We go into preseason, we do the fitness test. I was like, I got to be number one. We go into every single small-sided, every single shooting drill, every single goalkeeper exercise, and it's like, I have to be the best. It was life or death for me. To me, there was no other way, and I wasn't going to let a single thing slip. Like, after every single preseason game, I would literally debrief with my roommates. Obviously, we were my teammates, and I was like, You think I did enough here? Like, what could I grow on to do in the next game to help me keep a spot, to help me earn that spot?" And so I think it's being so controlled but delusional in what you do, and never expect anything to be yours, never take things for granted. Like, these are little things that we've talked about, and I've always talked about with my other pro teammates, but you really don't realize it until after.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. You talk about, man, even if you are that starter, like, stay hungry. Work
100%.
like you're the third string, right? Because I talk about this a lot, but the minute that you think you've got a spot, and you start acting like that, man, that's when someone's going to come up right behind you. So that's awesome. And I also like what you said about, man, it's not just the weeks before a game or before a season or the days. It's the months. It's the years. It's all the years in the academy that you had. You can be working so hard for so long, but it can all be building to moments, or just 100%. All culminate in one season. Mm-hmm. So I'm proud of you and all the work you put in, and how much success you had last year. We talked about it, played in the national championship. Obviously, it didn't go the way you guys wanted to, but tell me what it was like to play in that game and just experience, playing at Wake Med, awesome place. What was it like playing in the national championship?
Man, it was unbelievable. One of the best times of my career. And for those that don't know, like, NC State's in Raleigh, Wake Med, is that also? No, it's in Apex.
Yeah, very close to Raleigh.
Literally 15 minutes away. So it was like having a home game. So you walk out for warm-ups and you just see this sea of red. And I just remember just that whole warm-ups, just smiling. It was also freezing, by the way, which am not built for the cold, but man, it was something I'll never forget.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to shift gears, talking about your pro career so far, first year pro. Can you tell me what is the biggest difference, or like the biggest surprise that you've had between the college game or just college life in general, shifting to now professional life, not having to go to class and all that kinds of stuff? What has kind of been the biggest differences and like biggest surprise that you've had through your couple months now as a pro?
Yeah, I think the obvious is you will have so much more free time. Some that I would say for the first few months you don't quite know how to adjust to it because you have so much free time. So it almost feels like there is something you should be doing that you're not. But the recovery is so important. I think that was the one thing that caught me off guard is, college season, that's 3-4 month stint of 20, I guess for some teams 18 to make it all the way to 26 games. And, it's staying ready for 3-4 months. But now in pro life, we're month 8th in, 7th, and you're like, woof.
And there's still a lot to go.
It's still so much. And the body's hurting, it's getting hotter in Houston. It's average of like 95 during training days, and you're just blowing. You're like, man, how can I stay hydrated? How can I eat? How fast can I get my body recovered? And I feel like that probably eats up most of my day.
What would you say? Or you talked about time, and I think it was a big surprise for me. I think when I turned pro, I was like, okay, I don't have to go to class. I've got all this time on my hands. This is amazing. But then I found it's like, I think it says in the Bible, it's like the devil makes use of idle hands.
Yeah.
To where it's like, if you got nothing on your schedule, or let's just say you get home from training at 12, and you just spend the rest of the day playing video games and watching TV, it's like, that can get old pretty quickly. Would you say it's important for a young pro to have other things going on and scheduling time, maybe with friends or family, or maybe having a hobby or a passion to make sure that your mind is not just solely on, okay, this morning session, then the mistakes that I made and I played like crap or something like that?
May 1,000%. I feel like that might have been the hardest adjustment for me with time is, maybe things didn't pan out how I wanted to right away. And, things kind of shift around and you don't know like where you'll be training the next day because we have a second team too. So I'd be up and down with them a lot. And so trying to remember that saying, it's, God, what is it? When things get too quiet is when things get loud. And for me, when you're so hard on yourself and, things aren't panning out the way you want to, when you're just doing, you're bored at home, you're playing video games get old, reading gets old, going out gets old. And you're just like, man, everything is just coming down on once. You start overthinking about the training sessions. You start worrying about your future. Where am I going to be in a year? Where am I going to be in 5 years? We're going to be in 2 months. And for me, that was very detrimental to my growth early on. And so for me, I found a therapist. I started getting out of the house more, started connecting more with teammates. And I think that's really brought me out of that. And to be honest, like the next step for me became, finally got a sports psychologist and started reading more and started, pushing the barrier of what I thought I could do mentally while also, building that foundation underneath me to make sure that what I'm building doesn't collapse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful, man. It's so like counterintuitive because you're like, oh, like it'd be amazing to not have to go to class and stuff. But I talk with guys who are pros now, and they were like, man, I actually miss having to like have a schedule and go here and go to the dining hall, and because it's just like, man, if you don't give yourself things to do and you literally come home from training and just sit here all day, it's not as glamorous as you might think. So I think that's a great lesson. What would you say has been the hardest part of your career? Not pro. I mean, it could be college, pro, but the hardest thing you've gone through in your career, and how did you get through it?
Yeah, I would say my freshman year. Leaving home, going to San Diego State, ended up finding out that my mother had been diagnosed with cancer. And for those that don't know, Houston Dynamo are sponsored by MD Anderson, which is one of the best cancer research hospitals in the United States. And we're lucky enough to have them here in Houston. And, it was a balance of, using my resources to try and get her help while trying to be in a good place of training in a new environment to try to push to, everyone comes in with expectations. I was expecting to be the starter coming into San Diego State. I had a decent pedigree behind me, and Jason kind of helped instill it in me. It's like, look, this is where you got to be. Like, you have to start here, build from there. And so it led me down a not so bright, just little pathway. It wasn't dark, but it wasn't healthy for me, and I could tell by then. And I ended up losing one of my best friends a few months later, and then reality really starts to set in of, man, you feel so lonely, you feel drained, you feel like everything's in vain, and you just don't know what's going to be the turning point for it all.
How did you get through that time? You talk about tough, dark time.
Yeah, I started going to therapy that spring semester. It was nice to be home and, rekindle with family that Christmas break. So that kind of helped me get through it and be able to talk to them a bit about it. The therapy helped, surrounding yourself with great guys. Like I said, Austin Brummett, who ended up getting drafted here. Me and him spent unbelievable amount of time together. And, learning more about yourself. Like, I feel like the less you know of yourself, the harder it is to really be comfortable and confident in who you are. And I believe, because I feel like I'm more of a people pleaser, like a people person in general, that, if you can't show up for yourself, man, it's impossible to show up for others. And I feel like if that was something that was important to me, then the people that need help is myself at this time.
No, man, I think that's beautiful, and I think I talk about this a lot with kids that I coach and mentor, but it's like, man, you can't pour from an empty cup,
Yeah.
right? Like, even if you have this want to help people and be there for people, it's like you got to first do what fills you up first, and you got to come from a whole place of self before you can give to others. So, no, I think that's great. What would you say? We kind of touched upon it, but what would you say is the importance of developing a strong mindset just for your life, your soccer career, and what have been some things you kind of touched upon it, like reading and stuff, but the importance of developing a strong mindset and some practical ways that you've built it or you'd recommend someone build a strong mindset.
Yeah, I think what makes our position so unique compared to field players is how psychological it is. Like, I would go on to say it's probably 60 to 70% psychological and 30-40% physical. You would be surprised how important confidence is, and self-love, and you know discipline is. And these are things that everybody may seem like they have, but it's something you learn. It's something you teach yourself. It's something you instill in yourself over and over again. And finding what makes you confident. For me, it was surrounding myself with people first, and then it became, who am I outside of the game? Yeah, I'm Logan Erb, and everyone knows that as the goalkeeper. But who's Logan Erb to my family and to my friends? It's not the same Logan Erb that everybody else knows. And it really, to me, it really boils down to how far you want to go and realistic expectations, while also keeping the ceiling open. It's sky's the limit. You want these goals, but when you're down here, this looks terrifying. This looks unachievable. So then how do you set these little goals? Because the moment you start achieving these little goals, that's when the confidence starts coming, and then you start achieving more and more. And next thing you know, you're halfway there. You're looking down. You're like, man, I wouldn't have dreamed I would have been at least this high at this time.
Yeah. Would you say, I like that about getting momentum, setting like smaller goals that you kind of reach bit by bit? Would you say there's a bit of like gratitude there as well? Like, you look at the high goals, but you also say, okay, but I do have this right now. I got my family, my friends, and so it's easier to kind of look up as opposed to like, oh man, that's so far away. I need to get that thing. Yeah. Would you like gratitude?
Yeah, no, gratitude for me has been a massive growing point in like this next phase for me, as far as, with my time here at Houston right now, and the way things have flipped so quick for me. As much as you want the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, mate, being able to sit back and take time out of your day to really appreciate what you have and how far you've came and what you develop on. Like, even with small things, like you finally learned how to side volley, you finally learned a technique, you finally made the team, you finally did X, Y, and Z. Like, it's immensely important to do these things, because you'd be so surprised how much they help you in the long run.
I love that. I love that. I want to talk about, I look at your college career, and I see some people that have some crazy college careers, but yours is pretty freaking nuts.
Yeah.
The transferring and playing at San Diego State, and then they bring in a new guy, and then you transfer, and then you're splitting time, but it all ends. And again, I wish you would have won the national championship, but playing in a national championship game in front of all those thousands of fans and all the success that you had your last fall, could you just talk about the importance of like trusting your process and just having faith in your journey? Because it's just like, I don't want to put myself in your shoes, but it's like, in that moment where you have all the success and you're on the field in the national championship, to think like, wow, all that I went through like led me here. Can you just talk about like just trusting your path and having faith in something beyond just the craziness of what's going on right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think my faith and my identity in Jesus Christ alone has been one of the best ways to have kept me grounded and have kept me humble in it all, and to keep me, sharp and ready for just each step that was coming. Patience was another big one. Thinking back to San Diego State freshman year with all that was going on, And you have people around you like, look, like there's something more out there for you. Stay patient. And you hear that, and you feel the way you do, and you're like, man, it's just not what I want to hear right now. Like it almost seems like a little cop out answer, but especially in the pro game, it's been the hardest lesson, but the best reward has just been the patience. And I think that NC State really helped set that up for me. And when I was splitting time, like for me, I'm not someone that can keep quiet, but in a good way. I was in the coach's office asking, what more can I do? Like, what are you guys thinking? What goalkeeper are you guys looking for? And almost all their answers, and it would piss me off unbelievably. Marco would just look at me and go, just trust us, just be patient. Like we have you, just be patient. Which to me, you circle back to that San Diego State, like, oh, it feels like a cop out answer, but you start buying in, you start putting down your walls a little bit, and you're like, you know what, like we'll give it a shot. And just kept doing it day in and day out. And as things kept coming, my faith kept me grounded, and the patience kept me grounded, and knowing that NC State wasn't going to be the ceiling. Hopefully MLS won't be the ceiling one day, and that's what helps you keep you grounded. Because yeah, you're finding all the success, but is this the most success that you want, or is there something more? Because if there's something more, then this can't phase you. This can't be what breaks you. It has to be the next level. But then when you're at the next level, it's just a repeating process. When I talk about these little goals to the ultimate goal, I mean, it's the same kind of stepping stone.
Absolutely. I love that. Just a couple questions to wrap up. Logan, if you had to give your number one biggest piece of advice to a young, hungry goalkeeper, one that wants to play pro, one that wants to play high-level college, play in a national championship, if you had to give one single biggest piece of advice to a young keeper, what would it be?
My goalkeeper coach now for the second team, his name is Renato. He's got this saying in his broken Portuguese where he goes, "Be suspicious." And the way I've interpreted it is, ask the questions. If you don't understand, get more insight. Find out more about people. Do the extra work. Find out what it is your coach wants, how you can improve, and you keep on building. Do the extra work. I feel like that's been something that I've probably found out in my latter half of my career of how important it is, but now I can't get enough of it, and it's something that I do every single day.
That's great. And one thing, I talk about this a lot, but like the extra work, you're obviously putting in the reps, but it's like when you're the last one off the field and you got the ball bag and it's 100 degrees outside in the Houston summer and you're walking into the locker room alone, it's like the belief that you build in yourself and the knowledge of like, man, I'm putting in this